there is a lot of benefits for people to own houses. I mean, that becomes more of a regular person in society. They're a better citizen. They're a better husband. They're a better wife. They're a better. They can raise better kids. And that fundamentally helps the country grow and be stronger, right? Without
homeownership is absolutely a social.
So there's a value by doing this loan of creating homes for people, right? I mean, that's a plus. This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective. Sponsored by Cotality. Stay tuned to learn more with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the notorious Rob, and as always, my amazing co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson, everybody.
Thank you. Hola, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hola. Well, I've been better, as I'm sure you saw on Instagram. Sonny and I had to say farewell, to Lucy, our dog.
Never an easy time.
Never easy, but it's kind of like dogs are so wonderful, and when you get them, you know that you're gonna have to say goodbye. Chances are, unless like
they're just so innocent. They don't cause any. It's like
some
some people. It's like it's about time.
Yeah. Well,
never a dog.
It's just part. I think that's why kids probably. I didn't grow up with a dog. I should have, right? Because they're going to live, maybe 13, 14, 15 years, at the most, right? So chances are you're going to have to say goodbye, remind us of mortality and, maybe.
Well, I can remember all the dogs. My first dog was George, right? And then we had, it's just.
They never leave you, They never leave you, right? Because they're just so great. But so other than that, though, everything is okay. How are you? How was your trip to New York?
Good. Dropped off. It was kind of sad to see my boy go, but he's going to make it happen. And if he can make it there, he can make it anywhere, right?
I guess. So no riots while you're there. No.
Not that I saw.
No crime wave. Anything like that. All right, good. No. Let's hope it stays that way.
The subway, it was fine.
Nobody being burned alive.
No.
I know all the New York people are just yelling and screaming at me right now. In any event, here we are. It is now early September. We expect to have all sorts of news hitting, soon.
Soon, yeah, hopefully.
It's weird because, normally like Inman happens, August, late July, right? And then a whole bunch of news comes out of there. But this time around, I feel like not a whole lot,
Yeah,
not a lot of news.
Not a lot, yeah.
But there was news, and I thought it would be fun for us to talk about, right? And maybe try and get members of the audience talking about it as well. So the news is, and I just saw this morning on Twitter, X, whatever. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter until
me too.
I'm old. That Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was interviewed on some news thing. I think it's the Washington Times, maybe. And he sort of dropped this news that President Trump might declare a national housing emergency sometime in the fall to deal with the housing affordability crisis.
Right.
And it's like, and part of the story, I think, was that
just to be clear, the National Guard is coming in and starting building houses. Is that
either that or evicting illegals? Probably is the.
Okay.
Because
grab a hammer.
Maybe housing supply isn't that bad if you get rid of 30 million illegals. But he didn't mention anything like that, right? But what was mentioned was that they don't really have any specific policy announcements.
Shocking.
Right. And what they said was they're looking for answers.
Right.
And specifically, I think the line that I read was that they're looking for things that won't step on the toes of the state and local governments. Right? Because after a housing policy, for the most part, is a local and state matter. Right.
Yes.
So the federal government is trying to be like, look, what can we do, right, without necessarily infringing too much on local and state prerogatives, right? That's one thing I read.
Yeah, that's a brand new concept for the Trump administration, right?
See,
We're
gonna
so
much Trump derangement syndrome. It's just so sad.
No, it's not this at all. I mean, think about it.
It's so sad.
Well, we're going to come in with the National Guard, despite what you want us to do. But
what are you talking about?
Hold on. But in this case, we want to be concerned and respectful of what the state and local governments want us to actually do.
Well, first of all, they only went with the National Guard in Washington, D.C., which has no local or state government. It is a federal district.
I think they were in California.
That's enforcing federal law, right?
All right. And
so there's that.
They're now talking about going into Chicago. So
they're talking about it, but they haven't yet. And if you think the people of Chicago should just be deprived of life and liberty just because you're pro-crime, like most Democrats,
I would let their mayor speak for them, and let's ask him what he thinks.
So you're pro-crime. I mean, just admit it. You love crime. You love criminals, right? That's like, run on that, dude. I mean, the midterms are going to be great. But in any event, back to housing matters, right? And there have been like a series of suggestions, on how the federal government could make housing more affordable. And I know it's a topic that we've, talked about. I really think it's like a major crisis, that's socially and politically like really damaging if we don't fix that problem. So what are some of the ideas that potentially we might provide them, the Trump administration, with an eye towards minimal infraction, right? Yeah. Minimal invasion of local and state prerogatives to make housing more affordable.
Well, I mean,
let's just brainstorm. Okay, we didn't prep this very much. Yeah.
If I remember, now I bought this book. I haven't read it yet because I read 2 books at a time right now. I'm like now I'm on, one about Apple and China and another one about like pricing and software. So that's my world.
That's a useful one.
But the other one is Ezra Klein called Abundance, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the things that he talked about in that book, and again, I haven't read it yet, but from I've listened to a couple of podcasts, is the way the federal government, because he also talks about this, like how do we fix this? Because it is a state or local type of thing. And that has to do with incentives, right? Where the federal government could put out these monies.
Right.
If you do A, B, and C, these monies will be released to you, right? And I thought and I guess that could go from the federal also to the state to kind of local municipalities, right?
Sure.
So I think to me that's I don't think that's an easy way. None of this is easy.
None of it is easy.
But I can see a clear path where that logic makes sense to me, because it's not like you can. The federal government can release like federal lands and open them up for development. And that's ridiculous because it needs infrastructure and all that other stuff in there. But I think incentives based upon what they view as their policy, the current administration, whoever that might be, is one way of doing it, right? I mean, I think that's probably the top of the list. No?
So knowing housing and knowing the industry like you do, like what do you think those incentives, like how would you structure it?
Right. Okay. So what do we think of this is again right off the top of my head. We're just brainstorming here. So right off the top of my head, what I hear, and I had Mr. Professor Kaplan speak at our MLS Reset thing, and it really does have to do with regulations, right? Yeah, build, baby, build, exactly. And so it does have to do with regulations and this fact of like, this NIMBYism that affects so many municipalities out there, right? So I would structure these deals where, that they would maybe work on, if you change the zoning and change, like they did in California, where they immediately just said, ADUs are cool, right?
Right.
Things like that, where you're going to we'll now release some monies to help you implement those things, and then maybe a little bit extra on the top for some other kind of initiatives that you have, right? So instead of having, there's some rules that's like you have to have a sidewalk and it has to have this much of lawn and this and that, and blow that shit up.
Right.
Allow people to build multi-family units, instead of having 1 story, go 5 stories and have 5 people live in that building. Incentivize, have, those kind of things. I mean, money's to kind of to disrupt or, negate a lot of the kind of regulation that people see that are this NIMBYism that's out there, not in my backyard, as they say.
Okay. Would you be as comfortable if it was worked the other way, instead of it being, if you change the zoning laws, we will release this money? If you don't change zoning laws, then we're going to withhold money. Because that's effectively how the federal government got 55 miles per hour speed limits.
Well, okay, so
right.
I don't know if that's any different in my head, right? It's money. It's either get the money or don't get the money, right?
Right.
So
well, the difference is,
I think there's a carrot stick analogy there. I mean, maybe you come in there with a little sugar instead of
that's the
power,
the difference,
right?
is the first approach would mean that the federal government would have to spend more money. The second
Right.
approach is, we're going to spend the same amount of money. You're just not going to get your share if you don't change your zoning laws.
Well, I guess the issues are, and I think there's some things that are going on now where they're
Right.
withholding money right now, and there's some
Right.
issues with the constitutionality of that, right? Where before the money was given at this kind of thing, and now they're saying no,
Right.
we have new rules to implement. So I think
Right.
that's tougher to do it from that standpoint than it is.
I haven't heard the constitutionality argument, but I think it's likely pretty weak, given that that's how we got the drinking age.
Well, but I mean, the other thing is like just the legality of it. If the federal government has voted on, I'm going to give you this money for this bridge 3 years ago, and now
Right.
the new administration says, well, no. Well, I mean, can the executive branch
Right. Just do
negate?
that. Right. That I don't know. Right.
Yeah,
I don't.
mean,
I
so
don't know
that's
right.
to me. I don't know if that's constitutionality, but
That's right.
It does talk about the separation
That's right.
of powers, right?
That's
So
right.
what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be one way. I agree with that. I think that whether it's through incentives or carrot of the stick, right? Essentially, somehow encouraging local and state governments to ease up, on the regulations, I think would be really big. Because it's a general matter. Like, I'm a fan of Brian Kaplan, right? His work, Bill Baby Bill. It's all about deregulating real estate. That makes perfect sense. The other thing I've wondered about is perhaps the Department of Justice should challenge zoning. Period. Meaning, zoning, when it first was introduced, right, was challenged in court, and the Supreme Court essentially said, it's fine. I think it's the case of the City of Euclid. I have to look that up. That's never been challenged again, right? I could see maybe the Trump administration, Trump DOJ, encouraging someone, hey, bring a lawsuit, we'll back you, because we want to take this to the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court maybe look at zoning regulations as a taking, right? Because I think a very strong argument could be made if a city, makes zoning regulations and now the property that you own is no longer as valuable, like you can't build certain types of things, right? Then that's a taking by the government and you need to be compensated, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure, but I mean, and again, I'll say this next thing, but know that despite anything, a lot of things end up in court, right? But
sure,
to start with, like, I'm going to sue something, or I'm going to, we're going to let's go from a legal aspect. Unless to start there, that in my mind, it just triggers, fucking years and years and years.
No, do both. Do both.
Okay, do both. Okay, yeah. Well,
both.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I get that then.
Right, because they're two different departments, right? So I have like HUD or I don't know, whatever, right?
Well, it's a carrot stick,
commerce,
right? I mean,
commerce, do the incentives or disincentives or whatever. Sure. Hey, change your zoning law. The Department of Justice, through the Solicitor General, could just go to the Supreme Court, be like, hey, can you take another look at this decision, right? Which was done in like the 50s or something, and maybe say, hey, you know what? Zoning is no longer, like, that's a taking. So if you pass a zoning ordinance that's going to infringe upon a private property owner's rights, you got to pay them. Yeah. Something along those lines. Because that would be yet another disincentive, right? Yeah. Because I could see local governments still doing zoning, right? Still saying, you know what, it's really necessary, right? We don't want, a slaughter yard, in a residential neighborhood.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
fine.
There's common sense things there too, right? A bit,
sure.
Right? Yeah.
But then the local government could be like, okay, well, we just got to pay, $2 million to this landowner over here.
Right.
And that's going to be part of the conversation. Like, sure, you can do that. You just
got to. I mean, I would more go on the carrot side of like just incentives, like, okay, you know what? For anybody that builds a multifamily, unit, like 5 stories or whatever, that's designed to sell to multiple families and not just this one
sure.
house per lot. the federal government will pay for your insurance, your housing insurance for 10 years.
Okay.
Or the federal government will you
don't need that.
Well, again, these are things like I'm just trying to think what are hot points now. I read about housing insurance is out of control and nobody's insuring anybody, right?
Yeah.
Or like, if you do this, then the federal government will give you a loan at 5%.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, those types of things that like, oh shit, that those are kind of topical things that people think now, how am I going to get homeowner insurance? How am I going to get a loan below this or that? When you start putting those incentives in front of people, maybe that NIMBYism kind of falls aside, right?
I don't think so, because I think builders have plenty of incentive to build multifamily. Right. It's that the local regulations typically don't allow them to. Right. So think about your neighborhood, which is lovely, Huntington Beach.
Okay.
You're telling me if I somehow got the permit from the government to tear down a single family house, right, or 2 or 3 of them, and then build a 50-unit apartment building, that I'm now going to instantly make a fortune? Of course I would, right? But what's the chance of the city of Huntington Beach saying, sure, go ahead and tear down these 3 single-family homes and build a multifamily apartment?
Yeah, right? Again, it has to be in concert, like you said, with something that the city local government is going to do as well.
So and I think that's just getting the government out the way. It doesn't mean that the neighborhood, the NIMBYism, is still going to be a problem.
Sure, right. But as the way you describe it, I mean, it's kind of a little shock value. I get that.
Yeah.
But as Professor Kaplan talks about, it's like the way you want to frame it is like, would I like my daughter to live in the same city that I do? That's right. The answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I mean, and the path that we're on now, that is not going to happen.
That's right.
Right? So what are we going to do, my constituents,
right,
to make sure that our daughters stay in the same city we're in, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's how it's a framing question as well, I think, right?
I agree with that. So, all right, we are agreed that somehow deregulation is absolutely an avenue that they should explore. How they do it, okay, there's going to be legal challenges, there's going to be constitutional problems, all of that. Okay, but still, however the federal government can encourage deregulation, good. Right, let's do that. All right. This next one, I don't know if we're going to agree, but I'll throw it out. So this is all premised upon my recent discovery of Richard Werner. The economics, he's an economist. I guess you could call him professor because I think teaches at colleges. But he has this theory of banking, which is controversial, and yet no one has actually countered it. Like, I haven't even seen like a really good argument against it, right? And the theory essentially goes, banks are not financial intermediaries. Banks create money when they make loans.
Okay.
So, and we can get into the details of that if anyone's interested, but I wrote a post about it. Please go check that out on Notorious Rob if you're interested. But essentially then the idea becomes the type of loans that banks make is incredibly important. If banks make what he calls productive loans, which are like loans to businesses, right, to expand or start a business, right? Or, in other words, loans that result in more stuff, more products, more services. Those are great loans because they lead to more employment, they lead to GDP growth, whatever, right? And then you have consumer loans, which are like credit cards, I guess, right? I'm going to go borrow money so I can buy a TV, right? Like all that does is it just creates inflation. Because again, this isn't money being taken from someone to give to somebody else. It's money being created anew, right? And that's the most important part of his whole theory, the money creation theory.
So hold on, if somebody uses a credit card to buy a TV,
right? What
is that classified as?
Consumption lending.
Right. So, I mean, it took people to build that TV, right?
True, but that's the business.
I mean, there's a lot of people behind to make that happen that were benefits from you buying the TV, right?
Yes, true. But it just creates inflation because those people would have made the TV anyway.
For free?
Not for free, but I mean, if you have a factory, you're making TVs, right? Now, maybe you don't expand, right? Because the demand is what it is, right? Hey, we sell 1,000 TVs a month. Let's make 1,000
People
TVs.
lose their jobs. Yeah.
Right. Or at least new jobs aren't created, right? Because the demand simply isn't there, right? But now you introduce all kinds of new money into the system that says, hey, go buy TVs. Now demand goes up. So that, now the factory has to expand, et cetera, right? Look, I'm just relaying what I've learned in researching, right? His point is that consumption lending, if you lend people money to use for consumption, it leads to inflation.
Okay.
Because you have more money chasing the same number of goods, right?
Okay.
And the TV example is actually a decent one. So let's say I have a factory, I make 1,000 TVs, right? And every month I sell 1,000 TVs because that's what people can afford to buy. All of a sudden, some new bank comes along and says, here's a TV credit card, here's whatever, right? So now you could buy a TV and pay it back, slowly, monthly installments or what have you, right? All of a sudden, the demand goes to 2,000.
Yeah, so they hire new people to make more TVs.
But until I hire those new people, I only have 1,000 TVs.
Right.
Guess what? Price of the TVs are going up.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Right? I mean, that's just basic inflation. All right. The third type of lending, which is what really concerns us, what he calls non-productive or non-GDP lending, which are loans made for asset purchases.
Okay.
And the most classic one is, of course, a mortgage.
Right.
Right? Because the point is, in that type of lending, nothing is produced. All that's happened is ownership changed hands. Right? You're the seller, I'm the buyer. You're going to sell me your house. I go borrow money. I give you the money. And now I own the house. Right? But no additional houses are created. Nothing was created in that transaction.
Well, I can argue that, but go ahead.
Okay. So his point is when you have that type of lending, it creates asset bubbles. Right? Because again, more money is chasing after the same number of assets. Right?
Okay.
And in my mind, it's really hard to start denying that that's what's happened. Right? We have the easiest, the cheapest mortgage system in the entire world. I don't think any other country has a 30-year fixed rate mortgage.
Right.
Right? And the only reason why we have it is because we have government backing. Right? Fannie, Freddie, the GSEs. Right? Because of that guarantee, banks are like, cool, we're going to make this 30-year loan at 6%. Right? And then they turn around, they package it up, they sell it off to the MBS market, et cetera. So all this flow of money. But all of that money just goes towards assets changing hands. Right? It doesn't create a single new house. So home prices have to go up. Right? Just by virtue of this money printing, home prices have to go up. That seems pretty obvious. Right? So the reform that the federal government can do without interfering with states with anything is essentially going to the GSEs and telling them, stop guaranteeing mortgages.
Okay. So that makes it, well, that's going to hurt the financial district more than anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And
because now they could say, well, it's backed by the federal government. So
right. Now it's not backed by anybody.
Yeah.
Now investors are like, oh, do I want to buy that mortgage?
Well, it would decrease home ownership also because now the banks would have to now really vet that person and probably would make it really mostly for the ultra wealthy that can really prove that they can guarantee that loan. Otherwise, if somebody, regular people couldn't buy a $200,000 house when they're making $70,000 a year.
They could buy a $200,000 house at $70,000 a year.
Okay, but the average price of a home is $424,000
Correct.
now, right?
Correct.
Right.
So the implications of the price of the house would have to fall to $200,000 because no one can buy it.
Well, the other thing that happens is that you have ultra wealthy people, or is it BlackRock or Blackstone?
Yeah. Both of them.
Yeah, they exactly.
Both of them.
Okay, they can buy them cash. They don't need anything else.
Right.
And then we end up with more of a renter society than a thing now. I mean,
right.
I think
which is why that has to go hand in hand with prohibiting that from happening.
Right. Yeah. So I just don't know. I mean, first of all, let's just go back to your beginning of your argument, right?
Yes.
What benefits que bono on this when it's just an asset? You say it's just okay. It's an asset. That's it.
So
Well, I think a lot of people would say that there is a lot of benefits for people to own houses. I mean, that becomes more of a regular person in society. They're a better citizen. They're a better husband. They're a better wife. They're a better. They can raise better kids. And that fundamentally helps the country grow and be stronger, right? Without
homeownership is absolutely a social.
So there's a value by doing this loan of creating homes for people, right? I mean, that's a plus.
The problem is, again, if banks are making mortgage loans, right, it's creating new money to go effectuate this transaction, right? It leads to asset price inflation, period.
And it leads to a better society.
But at higher and higher prices. So to your point, your daughter will never be able to buy a house in your neighborhood because the price of that home will continually increase because of the availability of mortgage lending.
Yeah. I mean, we've had markets where it's, let's be honest, GFC, right? I mean, that all fell apart in a lot of places in the country, right? So
what fell apart?
Short sales, it was too many homes out there, right? So, I mean, it came back, but for a period of time, prices did fall.
But let's look at that. But why did that happen? Because banks stopped lending.
Yeah, for sure. That's one
banks
of the reasons.
Just said, no mortgage. Oh, you want a mortgage? Oh, you better have an 830 credit score and, your LTV's got to be whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what you're kind of saying is going to happen to this next thing, right? Because if nobody's guaranteeing them, they're going to have to be a higher kind of.
It's kind of going to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't see any other way around it, right? In other words, if we keep the mortgage system we have today, right, which I understand, like I'm a beneficiary of it. Okay, we're fucking boomers. I have my 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I fucking love it, right? I get all that. But if we keep that system in place, then your kids and my kids, like, they're going to have to make $250,000 to be able to afford, a regular house. In
your case, but your solution there, I don't think you're assuming those because that prices are going to come down. I think that's a big assumption.
I think prices have it has to come down, right? So the example that Werner gives, and it's pretty
because
compelling.
It's not happening just in this. Okay, we're starting now. We're doing this. There's a legacy of all these other of the value of these assets that are out there now.
Right. No,
right?
It's going to get crushed.
Yeah,
it's going to get crushed. I mean, we just have to be, like upfront about the cost of this, right? Because again, you look at, say, the example that Werner gives is Japanese real estate. All right. So 80s and 90s, right? This was like the big giant bubble in Japanese real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Where like a patch of Tokyo was worth more than the entire state of California. It's like, this is completely ridiculous.
Right.
But why was it happening? Because Japanese banks were just doing mortgage lending like crazy, right? So Japanese real estate prices have fallen, like it's come way down. Like and people have lost fortunes, right, because of that, at least on paper, right? But you go to Tokyo now, there's still 40 million, 60 million people living there, right? And right now, Japanese real estate is pretty affordable compared to the U.S.
Well, yeah, that's because they're living in 500 square foot houses.
No, just on a per square foot basis, like it's actually not that terrible, right? There's a whole bunch of other factors as well. However, yes, property owners are going to get crushed. They're just going to get crushed.
So who's voting for that?
Bingo, right? However, here's the interesting thing. That one, the administration can do without legislation and without interfering with state or local government, right? Because the GSEs are all under the Treasury, all under sort of federal government control. The laws are already in place. They absolutely can go and do this.
So you're going to say that on new loans and existing loans, it's all taken off?
What do you mean existing loans?
Well,
I mean, no, those are guarantees already given. So just going forward.
Okay, just going forward. Okay.
Just going forward. That has to combine.
But hold on.
Yeah.
So that really also not that there's a big market for this anyway, but that just crushes the refi market too.
That
who is going to qualify under the new, if it's a new loan, right?
yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
going to be
It'll
right?
crush the refi market.
Yeah.
And
Even
in fact,
further.
like what'll end up happening is, once you get the government out, then people are going to figure out, okay, what's the price where it makes sense, right? Chances are we're not going to see a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So you look at other countries where they don't have this.
Well, yeah, like Canada, it doesn't reset every 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. So like every other country I could think of has an adjustable rate, right? Or like short-term fixed rate, like 5 years and then resets, 5 years and resets, etc. Right? And there are some real downsides to that. I'm agreeing there are downsides.
Yeah.
However, I think it's not just we're not going to back mortgages by itself. That would be a terrible idea, right? Plunge the country into depression. My idea was instead have Fannie and Freddie and the GSEs and FHA and VA, whatever, all switch to backing construction loans.
Okay, so so any new homes that were built after this would be guaranteed.
No, just a loan to the builder.
The loan to the builder would be guaranteed while they build it.
That's right.
And then once they sell it, though,
right, then
that
you've
goes
obviously, right, because then you paid back the construction loan. Right, but by guaranteeing and encouraging construction loans, which, by the way, to me includes renovations.
Somebody renovating their own place.
Right. You could go get that loan at much lower rates. It'll be much more available.
Okay, so but you still run into like, okay, I'm a builder, I'm a constructor, I'm a contractor.
Right.
I can build homes now with a guaranteed loan.
Right.
But the city's ordinances still to let me make a home.
So we have to go with we still need this no matter what.
Right.
But assuming we have some level of deregulation, by making construction loans cheaper and easier
why can't you just keep everything in place and make construction loans, just make them also give the guarantees to construction loans too, instead of blowing up the other part?
Because construction loans are going to be productive lending, whereas mortgage lending is non-productive, and it just causes asset bubbles.
Well, I mean, ish.
That's
right?
why.
I mean, I think there's some productive things that come out of people owning a house, but
no, like I'm talking like economically. Of course, there's productive. Like, yes, it's a social good. I want more people to own homes. Like the whole premise here is, I think every American should be a homeowner, if possible. We're just making it impossible for people to become homeowners. Right. And the barrier, I'm sorry, it's just price. Right. If the American home was 3 times median income, it's really not a big deal. Right. So either we have to double income or home prices have to fall. Right. My thinking on this, and I could be totally wrong, I'm not an economist. Right. Maybe we need an economist to come and tell me how wrong I am. I'm saying if we start discouraging asset lending and encouraging construction lending, that's going to be a lot of jobs.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of related, like it's not just, construction, like when a new community goes up, it's not just the builders and the construction guys that are making money. It's all the people giving them lunch. It's the car dealerships have to supply them with trucks. It's suppliers. Like it's a lot of jobs, which then hopefully we'll see wage growth at the same time as it keeps, and they meet in the middle. So hopefully it's not quite as disruptive. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of where my head is at. Now at the same time, we do have to deal with the whole BlackRock, Blackstone, rich people just buying everything up, right?
Right.
And I think there's a very simple answer to that. I've written about that in a post like 2 years ago called Madre, right? And that one is relatively straightforward. It's basically this. You tax the living shit out of rental income.
Yeah.
Right. And then you make mortgage lending tax-free. Right. So even though, even though Fannie and Freddie are no longer backing it, it becomes something so attractive financially that a rich guy or Blackstone might be like, let's not buy homes to rent out. Right. That's not going to pay. Instead, let's do mortgages.
Right.
that's kind of, I'm hoping this all kind of balances out, right? What do you think?
Well, I mean, they're all ideas, right? We'll have to see what is the best thing for that. Yeah, I'd be very very interested to hear from some of the listeners out there.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cotality. CoreLogic is now Cotality. Same trusted technology and data, just with a new name that reflects their mission to unify property professionals, strengthen industry relationships, and drive innovation globally. Cotality powers tools you already know and love, like Matrix, the gold standard for MLS systems. There's one home for agents who want to give their clients a more personalized collaboration experience. MLS Touch keeps you connected to the MLS no matter where you are. Realist gives you the insights to stand out as the local expert and tools to fill your funnel with high-value leads. The new One Homeowner platform keeps you top of mind and delivers value long after the deal is done. Learn more at Cotality.com. Our thanks to Cotality for sponsoring Industry Relations. You know, another thing this is kind of triggering in me is, and not that we can stop this discussion, but a segue into a recent post by Mike Delpreet.
Yes.
Did you see this one about the rise of exclusive inventory?
Yes. Yeah.
Can I show this real quick? Is this
yeah.
Okay? I mean, this is industry relations. We're just spitballing all the time here, right? So
we're done with that. We're done with fixing the housing affordability crisis. So now we're gonna fix Zillow and exclusive inventory.
Okay. Let's see. Window. This one. Share. Okay. Do you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So Mike Delpreet talked about.
And for people who are just listening on audio, come check out the YouTube channel. But also you can find this on Mike Delpreet's website.
Yeah, and the title of the story is Exclusive Inventory Update and Zillow's Catch-22.
That's right.
So if you look at this, the premise of what Mike is saying here is that, pre and post Zillow new policy of, quote unquote, banning listings, right? Which I think is a terrible narrative there. But anyway, so what he's saying, he has a chart here, right? And those of you on YouTube can see this chart where, the exclusive inventory of Compass exclusive inventory was going up, and then when Zillow announced the new policy, that inventory started going down. But then when they began, right, to enforce the listings, for some reason, the listings went up again, right? So this is a very curious thing to happen. Like, why did it go down when Zillow announced the new policy, but when they started enforcing it, exclusive inventory went up, right? Mm-hmm. So it seems more the Compass is, I guess, by looking at this, it's like this banning by Zillow has actually helped them, right?
Yes. So
what was your thought process on this? I have a theory on it, but I mean, I'm not sure I have all the information.
I feel like we've addressed this in some detail, right? My thing is, if exclusive inventory really were not popular, really hurt sellers, it wouldn't happen. Right? So meaning there's plenty of market demand out there for it. And right. I think the last time we talked about it, what I pointed out was when exclusive inventory was invented, it was the hottest buyer's market we had ever seen, right? Because in the depth of the depression, of the bubble collapse, like 2021 or so, because it really started becoming, 2011 or so, right? Because it started become a real problem for MLS around 2013, 2014.
Pocket listings, you mean? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I remember thinking like at the time that doesn't really make sense, right? Like if you're in the hottest buyer's market, you're a buyer, why would you not want to be able to see all the properties? And then it kind of clicked and it made sense, which is you're the buyer, you're in the driver's seat. You want to see exclusive inventory. You want to see the things that other buyers can't see, right? And to meet that demand, a bunch of sellers are like, let's do private, let's do exclusive. And this was being pioneered out of San Francisco, out of Silicon Valley area. And we know this. And that like sellers were like, okay, yeah, let's do exclusive because buyers are demanding exclusives. And then once it became exclusive and then the agent started figuring out, this is really good for me. right? Because now I control both
It
sides.
is very contrarian, right? In a
very
sense,
contrarian, right?
Almost paradoxical.
Right.
My take on this is that now the way he has it listed here, it says
Do you want to show that again?
Okay, hold on. Is the title is in the chart says Compass exclusive inventory, right? And this is, the enforcement again, and it started to rise back up the levels it was before the policy was announced, not enforced. My thought is like, is this just new inventory? Right? Because if it's not, if it's just inventory in total, could this be that listings are taking longer now to sell, right? Because they're not being thrown up, 94% of them were thrown back on Zillow, right? So now listings are not are taking longer to sell. And then you also have the thing of adding new listings into that exclusive thing. So the number of their listings rises there, right?
Okay.
So the real story is that the reason why it's almost acting like there's positive things to increasing your exclusive listing inventory, but there's also negatives, right? Inventories in most balance sheets is a bad thing,
right?
They want this thing to churn as quickly as possible.
Right.
So, and again, he's not very specific in the article, but if it's total inventory, the real reason this could be happening is not what he's kind of inferring here. What the real reason could be is that, wow, because they can't offshoot those to Zillow, they're not selling as fast. Mm-hmm. Therefore, inventory is increasing for exclusive listings. They're stale inventory.
Right.
And then you're adding new to it. Does that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But again, I've reached out to Mike. We had one back and forth, but I really don't know if he's kind of thought of that. I gotta believe he has, but I just want to get your take if you think that I'm being reasonable in
he likely has no data on that, right? I mean, I don't.
Well, where's he getting the data from? He's got to be getting it from. He's got to be getting it from Compass or something.
Yeah, it's probably some
reports
report,
or something out there, right?
Yeah, probably some report that just says like monthly total inventory, exclusive inventory. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But Compass is not going to break it down. Hey, the reason is because it's all stale.
Right. Well, I just the way I looked at it, I was looking at it from that angle, and I'm glad to hear that you're.
Yeah. No, I'm trying
because I feel like I'm missing one point that says, "Oh yeah, Greg," but think about this. And I'm like, "Oh fuck, that's so stupid. Why didn't I think?"
I know.
About
the only thing I'll add on to that though is whether it's stale inventory or it's new inventory, right? To me, that chart just says Zillow's lost.
If you look at it from I don't see that at all. It's like, okay, if you look at it from the perspective I'm coming from, it's like, yeah, you go exclusive, you go broke. Because those things are going to be on the MLS longer or on the market longer, which means more price reductions and things like that to get that inventory going, because they're only limited to that exclusive network or whatever the marketing power that local brokerage has. And that's going to end up for longer days on markets and probably price cuts.
Sure, but what was Zillow counting on? Pull that chart back up. Right. and let's look at the decline. Right. What Zillow was counting on when they announced the policy, right, and when they started enforcing it was that agents would get scared off, right? And that's that decline. They announced the policy, and a bunch of agents and a bunch of sellers are like, time out. You're saying my listing won't be on Zillow? Screw that. I'm not doing that. Right?
Well,
that's one.
Hold on.
The second part is agents going, oh, shit. I can't go to this listing appointment and then push exclusive listings, because then I have to tell the client, like, by the way, if you do that, you can't be on Zillow. Do you know what I mean? And I think that accounts for the decline. The enforcement begins, and to your point, maybe let's just say it's all stale inventory.
Yeah.
Right. Like now that you can't promote it on Zillow, the home's not going to sell, and it's just stale.
So inventory builds because you have new people coming on.
Correct.
It looks like if this was all new, I'd understand. Right. I would agree with you. But if it's not, if it's a combo of new and stale,
right?
I don't know, man.
My perspective, let's say it's all stale. Okay, I'm just granting it. This is all stale inventory.
Right.
what Zillow's policy, and one of the things they were really counting on was, you can't be on Zillow as long as you're with that brokerage.
You can't be on Zillow as long as...
In other words, to get on Zillow, right, you have to list with a different brokerage.
Okay.
This was specifically the threat that was brought up.
There's a nuance to what they're saying, right? I mean, Zillow, I think, is saying, you know, if there's a valid reason for you to go to exclusive, right? I mean, for privacy concerns or whatever,
yeah.
you don't want to promote, do everything else, right?
But there's already
it's not
ways
really
to do that.
To be on Zillow, it's to be on the MLS. If it goes on the MLS, they're not saying it's a Zillow policy, but if it doesn't go to the MLS because of their policies, it's not going on to Zillow, right?
Well, what Zillow's entire enforcement scheme was, we don't care whether it's on MLS afterwards, right?
Right.
We're just not going to show it on Zillow.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So all I'm saying is, but the specific threat angle was, we're not going to show it on Zillow as long as that property is listed with that same brokerage. So let's just use Compass, right? So you start with Compass, you do a Compass exclusive.
Well, okay, but the way you're saying it is, granted, is probably correct, right? But it's like, what has to happen is they have to go through the exclusive listing agreement date. Right, the seller does,
right,
and then if it started as a new listing at another brokerage, without it being exclusive, then they're okay, right? So there's only a certain amount of time where that inventory can be stale if they don't re-up with Compass under exclusive listings.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, the mechanics and the whole enforcement threat and all of that was, as long as that listing is with Compass, it will never be on Zillow. So if you want it on Zillow, you have to list it with a different brokerage. And that was going to apply pressure in two different ways, right? One, it was going to apply pressure to the seller. The other way it was going to apply pressure was to the listing agent, right? Because as a listing agent, you don't do all the work to go get a listing, right? And then have to give it up after 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you have a 1 year long, whatever, 6-month listing contract. Like, if the client comes to you and says, release me from this contract, you're going to release them. You know what I mean?
Well,
especially listing agents.
They're going to fight like hell, but yeah.
But you're not going to hold on to some, especially Compass and their price points, the high-end luxury market. You know, $5 million houses.
If they're a salesperson any worth their salt, they're going to do all their damnedest to,
I understand, right?
Trust me, right?
Of course, but
nobody's just going to surrender.
No, I'm going to that, right? So my point though is, like, the threat was supposed to be along those two vectors, right? Like, you could be the greatest salesperson, listing agent in the world. If you go and pitch the exclusive, and your client, the seller, says yes, guess what? That house will not be on Zillow as long as he's listed with Compass.
Correct.
So either you, the listing agent, has to move brokerage to a non-Compass brokerage, right?
Well, but the agreement would be with the brokerage, though.
Understand. So you terminate that and you say, hey, I'm moving to Remax, come with me, I'll take care of you. Or you have to let the client go to a Remax listing agent.
Right.
Either way, that's a shitty outcome for the listing agent, right? And this was the idea behind Zillow's enforcement mechanism. This is how it's going to work. So no one at Compass, is thinking about this is going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to pitch a lot of exclusives. Like, that was, to me, that was the operative theory.
It's also
right?
it's also like, making sure the seller understood you're not going to be on Zillow, right? I mean, that
unless you switch brokerage.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a nuance, right? It's like, if you list with me, I'm not putting on Zillow. If you look for somebody else, you are going to be listed on Zillow. Make a fucking decision, right?
Sure. Yeah. But like I said, I mean, I think that piece, that detail is really important, right? Because here's the thing. Let's say you've been listed and you're not happy. Why is my home selling? Remax agent calls you and be like, hey, man, it's because you're at Compass and you're banned off Zillow. And you could talk about, well, that's interference of contract, ethical, blah, blah, blah. Sure, whatever. Okay. I'll pay the $500 ethical fine to get this $5 million listing. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know this is going to happen. My point is this. When I look at this chart, enforcement begins 7-1. And by 9-1, we're back up to the old levels. And let's say, to your point, it's all stale. Mm-hmm. The fact that those sellers have not fled is really significant to me. Because exclusive period is not going to be 60 days. It's just not.
Isn't it like 90 days?
Not exclusive. Just, hey, it's going to be exclusive, and they're going to coming. Remember, it's the 3-layer, 3-phase strategy, right?
Well, I'm going to Google that. Like, what is the time period for an exclusive?
Compass exclusive. I think it's up to the agent, but it's like the number I've heard most often is 14 days.
Really? That seems crazy.
And then they'll do coming soon. Right.
What is your thoughts on what it normally is? What is a listing agreement? No, mostly isn't it 90 days?
It's about 90 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think that this is? I'm not seeing anything real quickly here that tells me.
It's just based on like Compass agents I've spoken to, right? They're like, we're gonna do like 14-day exclusive, and then we might do a 14-day, coming soon, and then we're gonna go full market.
Right.
That's what I've heard. Right. Hey, if you're a Compass agent, you know better. Like, talk to me. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that graph. That's 2 months long. There's a seller, who's listed 7-1 exclusive, and then no results. Nothing selling. And to your point, I'm just cutting prices. I'm just like, what the hell is going on with my home? You're telling me after 30 days, you're not going to be calling your agent, be like, hey, listen, this exclusive thing is a fail. Right.
Well, it mostly is a fail, right? 94% of them go to the fucking Zillow now, typically,
so
right?
Where
I know it's a fail.
So I'm going to go list it with Remax. I'm going to go list it with EXP, who can get my house on Zillow. To me, that would have happened across the board.
So you're saying they're just grinning and bearing it?
Apparently.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean,
so
I don't know. I mean, that's a stretch for me, but I mean,
I think do you explain this if it's all stale?
Number one, the number way we got to find this out is like I explained it because they've signed an agreement that says 90 days. Right?
Again,
and that would be.
I get
it. You don't know. You don't know, right? I don't know either, right? But I mean, that would be one way, right? Number two is they're tap dancing, right? They're just doing as much as they can to keep that client, like on the hook, so to speak, right? I mean, being a good salesperson, like trying not to get them leave them, right? So those are two things there.
Greg, but there are limits to tap dancing.
No,
hold on. We said 14-day exclusive.
Well, hold on. And again, this could be, the rise could be, we don't know if those stale listings are, I mean, to your point, if they're all stale listings, that's a problem. Maybe it's 30% of them.
No, Greg,
it's still going to cause. It's still going to cause a stacking.
You're trying. You're bending. Like I'm saying, just look at the data, right? I'm just saying it's 60 days of rising, right? If it's all stale, the part I'm saying is, to me, if Zillow and being on Zillow were that important to the sellers, they would have left Compass.
But we already know that they are that important because 94% of those listings always in the back in the day ended up on Zillow. They didn't go through. They didn't sell during the exclusive listing.
So why didn't they switch?
They can't now.
Why didn't they can't? Of course they can.
Well, I mean, the friction maybe of leaving them, canceling that contract, and going over to new brokerage.
It's a $5 million motherfucking house.
Again, we don't know. I mean, I hope to get some clarification from Mike. Maybe somebody in the comments from Compass can do that. But
Zillow, Compass, like let us know. But I'm just looking at the numbers. Like this doesn't make any sense. The seller would switch.
Right.
So the fact that it hasn't happened and it's just staying like this, and to me, I think it's a mix. I don't think it's all stale. I don't think a lot of it's new.
It is a mix. I'm just saying.
Right. I'm saying even if we assume it's all stale.
Well, I think not even. I think if it is all stale,
right,
then that's fucking bonkers, right?
That's
I agree
bonkers.
With you.
Right?
If only percentages are stale,
I'm saying if it's all, if 100% of that is from stale listings, to me it means Zillow lost, because that seller did not leave Compass.
Well, again, we have to find out what are the reasons. You're assuming that they're so in love with exclusive listings, even if it doesn't sell, they love their agent or whatever. They're going to continue down this route, right? I mean, that's a big, that's a big statement to make, right?
Well, what else is it? What are the other possibilities?
Again,
they love
contractual.
Zillow. They really want to be on Zillow.
The contractual, right? I mean, the friction of moving to other brokerages or whatever else.
Greg, come on, man.
I know. You're the one that tells agents to sign, buyer rep agreements. I mean, the legalities you're not concerned about, all right? But there are people that are.
Seriously, as a real estate, if your real estate agent threatened to sue you, how long is that guy going to be a real estate agent?
Yeah. Again.
Hey man, listen. Your exclusive strategy didn't work out. I think I'll go elsewhere. You have a written contract.
We're not working out. It's not going on Zillow, but I wish I could get you out of this, but it's my company's policy.
Right. So
I can give you there are attorneys.
So Greg, right. So Greg, you guys going to sue me?
I'm not going to sue you. God, I love you.
Oh, okay, right. So your company.
This isn't me. This isn't me.
Sorry, I see.
This is
the
corporation.
Think about this. I'm the guy that owns a $5 million house. Fucking bring it. Right. And meanwhile, I'm going to tell
Rob, I love you. I'm not bringing anything.
Hold on. I'm then going to tell all my CEO friends.
You and I are good.
Never ever list with Compass because they are going to sue instead of letting you out of a bullshit contract.
Well, I don't think that's right. I mean, you made an agreement, right? I mean,
right.
You're
so
saying
I'm just
your word is not your bond.
You know what? People who are listening, talk to me. How often do you sue your client to maintain a listing agreement? And now he's pissed at you and your company. It's like, I don't want you in my house. Don't make appointments.
Lots of people sue their customers. Zillow sued their customers. I mean, lots of people do that.
Zillow has only done it a couple times, as we know. I'm just saying, this notion that you're under agreement, you have a written agreement, that's all horseshit. No,
I hope not. Jesus.
Sorry. I just don't buy it. I think if there's a company that's doing that on a regular basis, good fucking luck to you. You ain't gonna stay in business for too long, Like, that's not what happens. Every listing agreement, every listing broker, every agent that I've ever spoken to of any class, like, listen, I know we have signed this agreement, but you want out, you just let me know. I'm going to let you out. Every single one. Buy side, listing side. So, no. The fact that that graph looks like that, to me, is like, I think Zillow lost.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right. Because the sellers did not leave. I would have fully expected it.
And why do you think they, if that's the case, if it's all stale listings going on your argument, why didn't they leave?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Okay.
Right. I don't know. And the only one that I could really come up with is they're like, I hired this guy to be my agent. I trust him. Right. So yeah, just get it done. And I'm not in some sort of major rush. Right. Like, it's not like I'm buying another house and then I have to sell this one or two, right? It's not one of those.
Yeah, or I hope I doubt that we'll ever really find out the real reasons. But God, there's always one of these questions in the industry where, like, I wish, like, I'll hear 5 years from now, I'll be at some lobby bar and like this guy will saunter up to me and go, Greg, I listen to your podcast, love you and Rob. I used to work for Compass 5 years ago. Remember when they did this and that?
Yeah.
Here's what happened. I'm like, fuck, where were you 5 years ago, man?
Yeah. That's entirely likely to happen. Or you'll get told something confidential, like, okay, I know the answer, but I can't reveal it.
Yeah.
That happens a lot as well. So,
dude, we're almost at an hour. This is
talking about this nonsense and the nonsense ideas of how to make housing affordable. All right, let's end here. Housing affordability is It's a major issue.
It is the issue, yeah.
And quite frankly, we as an industry do not talk about it enough. Everyone out there, most people that are listening to us, I think, are kind of in the front lines. Like, what are your ideas? How do you make housing more affordable?
Yeah.
How do you do that? And yes, we've come with deregulation and a crazy idea about changing the way mortgage financing works. We'll probably have smarter, wiser ideas. We'd love to hear from you on those. So, thanks, everyone, for listening to us, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks.
Bye.